Good morning, everyone. You're watching Barnstable This Morning. Joining me now is Jim Hill, President of the Board of Directors for the Cape Cod Writers Center. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me here.
Love the Cape Cod Writers Center. One of the things they're really known for is their annual conference, which is actually coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, the conference is August 6th through 9th at the Resort and Conference Center right at the end of Hyannis Main Street.
And that moved there just a few years ago, right? I think
Yes.
it used to be held at the Craigville Conference
Yeah,
Center.
it was at the Craigville Conference Center, which was a really great, quaint location. But you know, our conference grew, and the technological there we go, needs of attendees and presenters changed too. You know, we need a business center, we need Wi-Fi, air conditioning.
Yeah,
But,
all those things.
Yeah, but I started going when it was at the Craigville Conference Center, and it was, you know, some magical times. It was really nice.
At what point with your interaction with the Writers Center did you decide, hey, I'm going to be a member of the Board of Directors?
Well, I'd gone to two conferences, 2008 and 2009, and I'm just going to back up a little bit because 2008 was a point where I decided to go to take a creative vacation, which I think this is a great opportunity for. I was a little frustrated with my day job. I'd always wanted to be a writer, and I signed up for a class. I told my wife, I said, you know what, I'm taking a week in August. I'm going to do this. And she was like, great, very supportive. And it was really eye-opening and life-changing. You know, the instructors for the classes I had were very encouraging, made me think that, or made me realize, hey, you've been a writer all along. You know, why don't you really go for this? So that was 2008. In 2009, I went back, and they had a great children's writing program, because that's what I do. And at the end of it, one of the other, actually, the guy who was then, I think, vice president of the board approached me and said, you know, we're always looking for new people who, you know, could help out, volunteer, whatever. You know, what do you think? And that's when I got involved. So I think end of 2009, 2010. And
fast forward to 2015, you're now president of the Board of Directors.
Yeah, you know, last man standing, I think.
What is it like to work with an organization that you're really passionate about?
Well, that's really rewarding, right? That's what we all want. It's great. We have a very small, dedicated board. It's an all-volunteer board, so we expect a lot of work out of people, and we get it. You know, people are there because they care about writing. We have two employees who work their tails off all the time. Nancy Rubin Stewart is our executive director, and we have a new business manager, Sarah Class. They go above and beyond all the time. But it's really great because we do get to introduce a writing community to the Cape and foster that for people. Writing across all levels too, you know, from people who are just, you know, finally deciding to pick up a pencil or pen to people who've, you know, published numerous times traditionally or are doing self-publishing. You know, that's such a big aspect now in publishing.
Well, and interesting that you mentioned that because some of the courses focus on some of these items. It is really tough for writers to get through those hurdles. So there's a primer on self-publishing. And then, of course, writing courses, but there's also classes about pitching your work.
Right, and that is, those are some of the most fun, too. You forget, because writing is really a solitary kind of endeavor. You go, you sit in your room or the coffee shop like I do, and you write. Eventually, you got to put that out in the world. And how do you get it out into the world is a challenge. There are definitely more opportunities to get your writing out in the world now, but you still, if you want to be traditionally published, you've got to come up with an elevator pitch, you know, just like you were an entrepreneur in some ways. And the pitching things are great. You focus your whole book down into one sentence, and don't challenge me on that because mine's really complicated. But they're exciting, and they're really nerve-wracking because, you know, writers are kind of introverted too. But here's a time when you've kind of got to get out of your own way and present the thing that you've been so passionate about for maybe years.
So cool, so cool. This conference is taking place this year, August 6th through the 9th.
Right.
When do we need to register if we're interested in taking some of the courses?
Now would be a perfect time. You can go to our website, capecodwriterscenter.org. We have online registration there. We have brochures that are available. Most of the public libraries down here do. I'll get some over to the town hall offices too. We have them up in the information center. But the online place has all the information you need.
Awesome, wonderful. Now let's talk a little bit more about you and your work. You said you focus on children's, is it fiction?
Yeah, it is fiction. You know, one time ago I worked with John Sullivan in the Barnstable Summer Family Theater, and we wrote plays and did skits and sang silly songs, and And then from there, I went out to, and I worked for a computer game company, again, working with kids and doing kids things. And the next job I had was it was at a publishing company, a textbook publishing company, again, focused on doing kid things. And I loved that. And then I kind of drifted away in that corporate, cycle you go through, and it got further and further away from doing things with kids and got less and less happy or fulfilled with what I was doing. And so then I took my creative vacation and discovered that, you know what, I'm a 12-year-old inside, and that's okay. Actually, we joke because I'm actually like 8, 12, and 24, depending on what day it is. And I think a lot of people are that way. So I write for kids, but it isn't like I sit down and go, today I'm going to teach kids a lesson. I just write the stories that are coming out of me, and they happen to be for kids.
And one thing you're doing now with this passion and this love for working with children is you're actually using that to help teach others how to do the same and maybe find their creative passions. You're doing this at the Cotuit Center for the Arts. Tell me a little bit about your class that is ongoing now, and I think you're going to do another one in the future.
Right. We'll probably do another one in the fall and maybe even add a second young adult writing version. So right now I'm doing a children's book, picture book writing class. It's a nice little workshop format. There are 8 people in it. We get together around a table. I try not to be overly pedantic. And we present the idea of like, how do you approach a story? What is a story? What is a picture book story versus a novel? And why is it so compressed? Picture books are really focused and distilled because they're only 32 pages long. Typically, there's some longer ones out there, but they always 32, 40, 48, kind of based on the publishing formats. And you are talking to, as Mo Willems, who is one of the greatest picture book writers out there, says, I write books for illiterates. And so you have to remember that too. But it doesn't mean you talk down to them because if you're a mom, kids are crafty. They're deep, and they come up with stuff that'll amaze you, and they will also process and synthesize things that are amazing and deep too. So you got to give them that opportunity. So I like to, what I've talked about with my class is idea generation. One of the things that held me back from being a writer for a long time was thinking, I only have one story. Oh God, I'm going to write my one story and then what? And what I've found is that once you start doing creative endeavors, it's like any skill or muscle, you just do it more. Now I can't walk down the street without coming up with a story idea. I've got a stack of story ideas that I will probably never get to, for the rest of my life. And that's a good thing, because then I can kind of sift through and find the best. And I've been trying to get, my class to do that too. And again, the class is this great range, probably early 20s to, I don't know, I don't want to judge, maybe 50s, 60s. And some of them have written a lot, some of them have not. Some of them, typically what you find with early people writing picture books for the first time is it's a lot of like, I want to share this with my grandchild, or this happened to me, it was really real, and then you find the way to take those realities, those real experiences, and make it a better story. Because truth is stranger than fiction, yes, but fiction tells the story better.
Wow. If you had any advice to give to someone who's watching and saying, writing is something I think I want to try, I've always had this story in mind, what would you say would be the first piece of advice you'd give them?
Write it down. Like I said, for years, I didn't know I was a writer. I wrote extensive stories in my head, and I never wrote them down. Write it down. Put it on paper. It's probably going to stink. One of the things I tell my students every week when I assign their homework is, I give you permission to be terrible, because first drafts do stink. That's the reality. But until it's on the page, until you can read it yourself, read it out loud, share it with somebody, get feedback, you can't make it better. Writing isn't a one and done. Like anything, it's a process. And so begin that process. Pick up the pencil, write it down.
Wonderful. Jim, thank you so much for stopping by and sharing your story as well as some things that are happening at the Writer Center. I really appreciate it.
This has been fun.
Jim Hill is the chair of the board of directors at the Cape Cod Writer Center. For Barnstable This Morning, I'm Sarah Mantle.